Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Peas in a Pod, episode 258.
We finally made it.
You know, I was about to say, how long has it been?
I don't know. I didn't keep track. Just producer Charlie's going to tell us.
How many weeks has it been since we had an episode?
Well, and then before that, there were a couple. I think we've had one maybe in the last 6 weeks. I think
we're back.
Yeah.
People probably thought we were dead.
Or I don't know if they thought we were dead.
Or if they even thought of it.
I'm just going to say,
I
have not thought about the podcast at all. I
think by the amount of questions we've received,
whether we did it or didn't do it.
Well, as I said on our last episode, we will not film until we have a question. And so that tells you something right there.
Yeah.
So maybe we're on our deathbed.
Yeah, we may be decreasing returns on our investment.
But I can say this: there will be an episode next week.
We do have back-to-back questions.
We have back-to-back questions. So you're in for a treat, audience. You get 2 weeks after a long hiatus.
Yeah.
And if you like it, you should send more questions. And if not, then
just
we'll wait. We'll wait when we get a question.
Just be done with it.
Here's my suggestion to some of you.
Okay.
There's lots of AI out there now.
There is.
Y'all should AI some questions.
And then we just AI the answer.
Here's what you should do. Put in our YouTube feed into ChatGPT and say, give me some questions that sound like something people would ask these guys.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But tell us you got them from AI. I'd like to know.
Here's a little, I'm going to save this for the next episode.
Okay.
Remind me I have a little fun banter for the beginning of the next episode.
This little minute 50 we've just spent might be why the podcast died.
What you're saying is they preferred the earlier episodes where we did this for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, maybe.
We did this a long time.
Can I just remind you guys that there used to be a day when I would bring things in for the intro.
And
we did top 5.
And all I want to say is that was when the podcast was growing.
Oh, we were growing.
So maybe I should do that again. I can remember doing top 5 lists.
Oh, yeah.
I will also say in those early days, we made up our own content. And it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
No, answering questions have been much better.
And this might not be any better, but we do have a question. And it's not anonymous. We have a name.
No, that's nice.
So I want to thank Tim for his question today.
Hey,
thank you, Tim.
Tim sent us this question. Here's Tim's question. My kid is listening to Alex O'Connor videos. Do you guys watch him? And do you know about his arguments? I'm struggling to combat his points, and I know we serve a more loving God than what he describes, but my kid doesn't believe me. Any advice would be welcome. So I did a quick poll before we hit record, and only 2 out of 3 of us knew who Alex O'Connor was.
I did not know him.
I barely know him.
Mm-hmm.
Is he a TikTok
I think he's more a presence on YouTube.
Yeah, okay. I would say he's a
YouTube guy.
But as with all those things, it cross-pollinates to all the other...
Okay.
All the other things.
He wants to be an influencer. Y'all told me he's a cosmic something.
He calls himself the cosmic skeptic.
Yes.
He's an atheist,
and
he talks about that topic most of it.
Cosmic.
I don't know if there's a cosmic atheism. I don't know.
There's a whole side of both YouTube and TikTok that somehow I got on, I guess, from watching 1 or 2 different videos. They're not even videos I really enjoy, but I guess I lingered too long on one video and now it's in my algorithm.
It's in your algorithm.
That's why I have all handyman videos.
Yes. Of debate talk. There's like guys who are political on that side, right? Charlie Kirk, who's on kind of the right side. There's a guy named, I don't mean right as in correct, I mean right-wing politics side. And then Destiny is a name of another person who is on the left side, and they often are in things together. And then Alex O'Connor is on the atheist side of some, and then there's a bunch of Christian apologetics, defending the faith people. Okay. So I often end up in these videos where I'll see him kind of going at other people and people kind of going back at him. And so, but I do not, the question asked, do I know his arguments? Not well enough to be able to tell you what I disagree with him on, other than I believe there is a God and I believe his name is Jesus.
There you go.
And Jesus appears to be, for most people, to be a very loving character. Even most atheists, if they believe that he actually exists, which means they accept history.
Yes.
They think he was probably pretty loving.
Yes. So in my experience, and I'm sure I've come across videos where I've seen this. I tried to I tried to, speaking of ChatGPT, I asked ChatGPT because I saw this on the thing. I said, give me a basic outline of what Alex O'Connor's arguments against the character of God. Yeah. And they are pretty, at least according to ChatGPT's culmination of his argument, is pretty basic, what I would call new atheist arguments. By new atheism, I mean specifically not new, because it's the last 20 years.
Yeah, post 9/11.
Yes.
15 years of
Richard Dawkins, growth. Sam Harris, those guys.
All religion is bad. That's what new atheism was.
Basically.
Pretty much.
And his argument seems to be very similar, is that, in particular, the Old Testament portrays God as being rather cruel or at least kind of capricious, just kind of like, honestly, very much like in their terminology, very much like a Greek god, kind of angry and willing to get back at people and all these different kinds of things. And so that seems to be what his depiction of God is, from what I could tell. But once again, I don't know that from personal.
And from what I gather from Tim's question here is his main concern is, he says he wants to, I think he's trying to influence his kid. He wants to be an influence in his child's life, and he doesn't seem to know how to talk about these arguments that apparently his kid keeps bringing to him. And I can hear in his question that he feels kind of stuck on where to go and how to approach this.
Well,
so maybe we can talk about that.
I think, having been a parent longer than either of you, and now grandparent, what I saw when I was a youth minister, watching people parent, and then I saw it for sure once I had grown children, is almost nothing you talk about is held on, and almost everything you do is held on to.
Actions speak louder than words.
Which everybody accepts, but then we want to talk to fix problems.
Yes.
And so I don't really know the specific argument that this YouTube guy has, nor the one you're trying to combat. But if you want to represent a God who is best represented by Jesus, your best way to do that is to work on you being a great representative of Jesus and allow Jesus to shape your life. It's really hard to believe in a loving God when you're not parented by it. And I'm not saying this is true of Tim. I don't know Tim at all. I'm just saying the best argument always that wins is a person whose demeanor and talk matches with the God they're representing. I have been a disciple of Jesus for a long time now, and then a follower of the writings of Dallas Willard, as he talks about it. And Dallas's book on apologetics is called The Allure of Gentleness. And he talks about that the way we try to help people, and that's the way he talks about apologetics, is all we're doing in apologetics is trying to help people with the situation they're in and trying to understand Jesus. I'm not trying to correct them. I'm not trying to fix them. I'm trying to help them with where they are. And in helping them, if a person is at a place where they can be rational, gentleness is alluring.
And I think one of the first things you have to do when you're in the position like Tim's describing is you will not be able to have any influence in someone's life until you can fully understand where they are coming from and articulate what they would say is their argument in a way that they would look back at you and say, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly what I think. And I think a lot of times we Christians, we bypass that step. We hear the argument, so to speak, or the statement, and we think, oh, I know what that's about. I got to come back for that. But you don't know for sure until you sit with the person long enough and you ask enough questions. That's why I think you probably should ask about 100 questions before you ever make a statement, right? Just so that you can understand, what is it that my child really feels? What is it that he really thinks about this? And am I representing his argument back to him in a way that he would agree with?
That's right.
Because once you do that, once you say back to your child, say, all right, so let me get this straight. Here's what you're thinking. Here's what you're seeing as the right way. And he comes back to you and says, yeah, Dad, that's exactly what I think. Then you can, and again, you don't even have to say anything. You go, okay, now I feel like I understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, you probably should go real slow and
Yeah.
real, like Ed was saying, real gentle. But that's the most important step, because now I'm on the same plane with this person. I have a relationship with them, and we know everything flows out of relationship.
Yeah, a wise person at that point that did what you just talked about, Jason, even if they knew the answer at the moment, a wise person, once your son said to you, that's exactly how I'd feel, I'd go, well, thanks for helping me to understand that. I'm going to think about that.
Right.
Even if you know what you want to say, you shouldn't make them think that their argument is so shallow that you have the drop dead kill for everything they've been thinking or feeling. You should walk away, allow that to them feel like they were heard, walk away. And
because in that process, my guess is you're going to learn something too.
Yeah.
Because I have found when I've taken the time to do that with people, I do learn a lot about where they're coming from. And it does change my certainly my answers, but just my posture towards them and my relationship to them, because almost everything comes down to an experience or an emotion of some kind. There's a reason why this guy's videos resonate with your son.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is something behind that resonates with him.
Yeah, and it may be rational. It may not be
It
rational.
may not be rational. Maybe an experience he's had with some Christians in some place.
Or experience he's had with non-Christians.
That's right. That's right. So understanding that would go a long way in you developing your relationship with him is the most important piece of that. You have no influence without relationship.
I'll say the most difficult part, I think, for parents in what we just described is the emotion we feel as Christian parents about our kids sharing our faith, and that anytime it looks like it's going to wobble, it affects us emotionally. And we need to deal with our own emotions, because our emotions can get out of control and allow us to not represent the God who we do believe is more loving in a way that doesn't convey that. We just have to believe that God is patient and kind with people. So I'm going to be patient and kind with the people I care about.
I know for me, a big question in discussions like the one you're describing too is start with saying, I really do want to understand. Can you explain to me the God you don't believe in?
Yeah.
But what are the things that you're having trouble with? And the interesting thing that I found is most of the time the God people describe to me that they are against is not Jesus.
Yeah. I am also generally against the God that they are against.
Me too. I can usually agree with them on
Yeah.
that and say, I don't believe in that kind of a God either. And that's sometimes a place where you can actually start from. But,
yeah, I think when I hear the question too, I was trying to think it through of how would I respond if my kid came to me and had been watching videos that I disagreed with. I wonder if your kid fully adopts the worldview of Alex O'Connor, or maybe that he is, or she. Does it say he?
I don't know if he said kid, so
My
it didn't.
kid.
I guess I assumed it was a son.
Alex is a guy.
Alex O'Connor is a guy. Yeah.
He was saying,
is
the child a son or daughter?
Yeah.
We don't know that for sure.
So when it says my kid doesn't believe me, I wonder, is your kid struggling with their faith? And especially the age of the kid, I don't know, teenagers, college age kids, that is the time where for the first time in their life, they are thinking, any youth ministry circle I've been in, they often talk to you about high school and colleges when they begin to think like philosophers. They are really seriously considering why questions. Children ask why questions, but they don't want why answers. They want what answers. So my kid will say, why is the sky blue? And once I start giving an answer, they're uninterested. They don't actually want to know. They want the answer to be, because that's the way it is. That's ultimately what they want it to be. Because when I start going, well, it's a reflection of it. Anything you get beyond that, they're not actually interested. But teenagers want to get to deep why do I actually believe this? Is there an actual reason to believe any of this? So it may not be that your kid is pushing against your faith, which is often where I think a lot of us feel when my kid comes and they go, well, Alex O'Connor says God's like this. And that's often the way that teenagers relate, is there is this sense of, as I'm trying to develop my own thoughts and my own identity and who I am, it feels, and from their perspective, feels like a pushing against. I have to take down your idea so I can develop my own. But, I've got a young teenager, but what I've often learned is she's not really trying to take down my idea. She needs to break it down so she understands why she actually wants to believe it or not believe it. And the times that I start putting walls up and go, well, this is it. I've already thought this through. I'm a lot smarter than you. I've already done all this, blah, blah, blah. That's when she's also shut down. Anything that draws her in and welcomes her in, which often, as Jason Edibo said, listening is a good part of that, and not feeling like I have to correct it, and just feeling like, oh, okay. If she's genuinely asking a question, I'll often answer the question to the best of the ability I think she wants to actually engage with the conversation.
I think what I find in situations like this, you just made me think of this, Nathan, is our conversations on the internet and of this nature. It often turns into two people trying to rush towards certainty.
Right.
And what happens is when you do that is you wind up going toward opposite sides of the room, so to speak, figuratively speaking. I run over to my side to grab all the things that I'm certain of so that I can bring that to the table and be solid. And the other person's doing the same thing, just on the other side of the argument. And where what you're talking about happens is when we both can humbly come to the middle and say, truth is, we're not certain about any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's right.
To a certain degree.
That's right.
There's a place where we can both agree to embrace a little bit of mystery about this. Now we can actually talk about something.
Yeah.
Before, you're talking at each other, or you're talking about something, but you're not talking with another person. When you come in the middle where mystery lies, that's where a relationship happens. That's where emotion gets shared. That's where conversation happens.
And I think in that place, that's a good way of talking about mystery. And I've had that conversation with my teenager.
Yeah.
We were riding in the car, and she said, "So do other people do?" She basically said, because she's very blunt in the way she says things. She goes, "Do smart people agree with you?" Is the way she said it. And I said, "Well, I think there are a lot of smart people that agree with."
If they're smart, they agree with you.
Yeah, I said, but there's a lot of smart people that don't. I said, and people are smarter than me who don't agree with me. And I said, but
in general, all of us measure a person's intelligence by how much they agree with us.
Usually. But I said, there are a lot of, there's a lot of smart reasons not to believe in this. I don't want to say that there's not. And I tried to answer that question the best I could. But here's where I ultimately want to get to is, I think on the parental side of it, I think we have been conditioned to kind of treat truth in utilitarian ways. I'm trying to think of a better way to say that, but in ways that I can use to my advantage.
The truth serves me.
The truth serves me. So we don't, most of us, I know scientists probably do, but most of us only care about scientific truth to the point that it helps me to live my life and develop and progress me in a way that can benefit me and serve me.
Well, and even scientific truth is not the way most people, when somebody says something true, they think it's unshakable.
Sure.
But scientists think in terms of this is the truth as we understand it
right now.
Right now.
And
so
they
have more mystery than most people
do.
And so when it comes to claims about God, I want truth up to the point that it serves me. And so what I mean is, I want to feel confident that there is a God and that he loves me. And by loving, I mean, I want to make sure he's going to do good for me. But this idea of mystery, where there's also a God who is a being that I can't control and who does things I don't understand.
And that my language can't fully encapsulate.
No. So I look at things in the Old Testament, which is I would assume is particularly where this person would say he would be an unloving God. I think it would be, as Ed's already said, it would be hard to read the New Testament Gospels and go, wow, that is a cruel And you know, you could maybe say it makes no sense, it's not accurate. It'd be hard to refer to Jesus as very cruel most of the time. But certainly you could look at things in the Old Testament and go, I don't understand why he would say that. Why would he call for that kind of punishment? All that different kind of stuff. I want to look at that and go, that must either be a different God or Jesus fixes all those problems or whatever. It's hard for me to look at a God and say, well, that part either is something I don't understand, and that's part of the mystery, right? Or is something bigger than me. This is a God who is a person who does not primarily exist for my purposes. I exist for his purposes. That's an uncomfortable place for many of us to sit in. And I think going back to Ed's original point, I think a lot of cultural Christianity has primarily tried to shrink God down into truth claims that I can use for my benefits. Like, there is a God, and God died on the cross so I could go to heaven. Those are the truth claims I need to know because that benefits me. There's a benefit. Or there's other versions of I can pray this way and it'll make things go the way I want it to go, or X, Y, Z. All the different things. Not, I am learning how to interact with a being that I don't control. And that may behave in ways that are shocking and surprising to me. And so sometimes I'm going to read things in the Bible and someone's going to go, why did God do that? And the best answer I have is, I don't know.
Yes.
That's right.
I don't know. But Jesus seemed to believe this God was him, that this was the same thing. And he seems to know better about the scripture than I do. And so I have to exist, as you said, in this place of mystery of going, I want to draw closer to this God. And he is best revealed in Jesus. So I'm going to walk closer to Jesus, and I'm going to assume, and I'm going to trust, maybe it's a better word, that all this stuff that I don't understand is just like any human being. I mean, y'all have been with your spouses longer than I've been with mine, but my wife and I have been in a relationship for 20 years. There are still things about her that's a mystery to me. I said something to her last night, and I realized we got in this little just back and forth. It wasn't an argument, it's just a back and forth. And I realized, I don't understand why you're coming from this position.
Yeah.
And and I've known you for 20 years, and every problem, most of our conflicts at this point in our marriage is me assuming I know why she's coming from the place she's coming from. Because I've known you for 20 years and I got a bunch of evidence that I can point to, and those are my scripture references. I pull those out and I go, this proves that this is who you are because I know who you are. And then I interact with her and I go, oh, that's a little more mystery. I guess I don't fully know everything about you. And I think as a parent choosing to engage with my kid, if they're genuinely asking questions and say,
well, I don't know how the kid is, whether a person is genuinely asking questions or not, is not for me to determine. And often, I have often thought, and others think, I can determine by your attitude whether the question is genuine or not. Not always. I mean, I should address it as gently and openly as I can, because that best represents the God who I understand. And so I haven't always done that. I'm not saying I've always done that. I haven't. And I think the hard part for parents is this mystery part with another person's faith that you care about. I very much care that my 3 sons and my 9 grandchildren all follow Jesus. But in the end, their relationship with Jesus is mysterious to me.
yeah,
And to them.
And to them. And so,
and it's going to be different in 10 years than it is today.
And if I try to lock it down by getting them to say things that make me feel better,
That's right.
and not answer their questions when they have questions about, Dad, how do you see this? This guy says this. It may come as an attack to me. I don't believe what you believe anymore. Okay, well then tell me about what this guy believes. And then if you're interested, I'll tell you why I don't believe what he believes. But I can't do much inside of you to fix whatever that is. I can help. And then the way I understand faith and parenting, my best next move is to pray that God will bring circumstances and people along in my child's life that will help them untangle whatever it is tangled up in the mystery of their inner being, which is a mystery to me. I would like it to be concrete, but every time I try to get it and I think, oh, I understand, I know where they are at, I am as sure as I can possibly be, I go, maybe not.
Yeah.
And I think treating it as a journey with my kid, because my own faith is a journey with God. And maybe my prayer is, if they're interested, if they're, and I, you know, that's more of what I mean when I say, is it a genuine question? Is, you know, you see Jesus interact with people, and there are times he knows you're not asking a question.
Well, but he had an ability I don't have.
Well,
he knew the hearts of men, it says.
He does. He does. And we can get into a different conversation on what part of depleting himself of the godliness was that in tune with the Spirit, that he could judge it and all those different things. But he seemed to know there are times to engage because you're interested in the conversation, and there's times you're not actually interested in the conversation.
Right.
And if you're interested in a journey with me, then maybe it's, hey, let's sit together and let's read some of the scriptures that you're talking about. Where is it that God is described the way that you seem to be, that this person says? Maybe they don't know. And so then you go, okay, well, then let's start with Jesus, and we can work our way back to some of the Old Testament stuff.
And with some of these philosophers I have found through the years, I would ask the person, so this person's on YouTube. Do you know where he got his information? And do you know why? I've had conversations with people that will say to me, you know, I read something once when I was in college, and it just forever shaped me. I go, oh, that's interesting. Who wrote it? They go, oh, I don't know. I don't know who wrote it. What was the name of the book? I don't really even remember. I just remember this statement, and it just shook me. And I'm like, so a book that you don't remember the name, written by somebody you don't know, it shook. Maybe you should look into, and I'm not saying this guy he may have all kinds of reasons.
He's a pretty smart guy.
But you should look into, why is it he believes what he believes?
Right.
What is it? As much as you're questioning why other people, because currently there are more people that follow the philosophy of Jesus on the planet than any other philosophy. I mean, it's the largest religion in the world.
Sure.
So there are a lot of people that do think they don't think what this guy thinks.
That's right.
And so I think there are all kinds of ways to go at it as gently as possible and say, hey, I'm willing, but can we figure out where this guy came from and why he thinks what he thinks and what his credentials are?
I'll say it to you like I said back when I was working with young people, and I'd have parents walk up to me and say very similar things. Number one thing for you to know at this point is, don't freak out. Right. Because I know there's everything in you as a dad that you get scared. And like Ed said earlier, there's an emotion attached to it. There's no need for you to worry. There's no need for you to freak out. This is a moment in your child's life where they are asking questions and they're trying to put some things together. They will be doing that for the rest of their lives. And so this snapshot in time is going to look different 10, 20 years from now. And you don't want to do something now that will taint or ruin the relationship that you have, such that you can't continue this conversation in 10 or 20 years with them. That's what you want. You want to continue having this conversation as long as you're alive and this child's in your life. So make sure that is where you stay focused. And I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think accepting, this is at least where I'm trying to get at this point with my kids, because the place they're at, I may not be the one who ever gets to have the conversation.
No, that's
right.
And this is what I was saying, trying to get to at the end of the thing earlier, which is just because we think if you open a door by asking me a question, you've sat down for the whole conversation. Now you said your point, so now I get to say my point. That may not benefit you. And what you may have to learn is it's the difference between the role of the kid and the role of the parent. The kid gets to come at me and attack what I think. I never necessarily get to go, now let me come back and do this part. I may have to sit and pray and go, God, bring someone else in their life who can gently love them towards this. There may be things, and not because I did a bad job, not because anything I did. It's the nature of parent-child relationships. They may have to, and this kid's personality may be such that there's just a lot of things you have to overcome, you know, to get to a place for certain personalities to say, my dad was right and I was wrong. That's a whole other thing some people have to overcome. That to get to Jesus is a whole other barrier that they may need to go through someone else who will come to them that they don't have any of those barriers with.
Right. That's
And
right.
and then Jesus opens them up enough to come back around to their dad and figure out the whole thing.
Yes.
Not freaking out is a huge part of that, of saying, I trust that God is good.
Mhm.
I trust that God cares more about my kid than I care about my kid. And that he is going to be working to draw them to them with his kindness
Mhm.
and with his gentleness, which is greater than my kindness and my gentleness. My job, as we've been saying this whole series that we've been teaching on at church, is to do small things with great love. And so when they come to me with a question and I freak out internally, I go, what would a loving answer to this question be? And sometimes that's to tell the truth because the truth is loving. And sometimes that's to say they're not open to the truth right now. So saying nothing is also appropriate.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Say
sometimes
anything.
that's the most loving thing you can
That's
do
right.
is say, I don't have, okay, great.
There you
Or
go.
tell me more.
Oh, yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about it.
yeah.
Whatever. All right. So, as I promised, we'll be back next week with another question. And past that, I have no promises
Nope.
about the future.
Mm.
So, as Nathan
And
said
any
earlier,
we did make would be foolish.
it would be. And so, link is in the description. As always, you can keep us talking for as long as you want. Just click on that link,
That's
send
true.
in that question. We'll do our best. See you next week. Bye.